Okay, so welcome to the video. Today we're going to be creating the foundation for our combat system. We're going to be able to do combos like this. We cannot spam the combos. That's using an enum. We're going to be able to hit this player. We're going to spawn the weapon in the character's hand using the combat system with our equip weapon, which will take a weapon type that is set up completely through data tables, so it's completely modular. If I pull up the data table, we see weapons, we see we've got all our info. This will where we keep our attack montages, our skeletal mesh, so that we can basically add any weapon to this data table and create it very easily and then spawn it into the player's hands using components, so everything's modular. And we're going to use interfaces to take damage. We're going to be making a take damage function that uses event dispatchers so that we can create custom logic. And then in the next videos, I'm imagining there's going to be 2 or 3 videos of this that I'm going to try and do in the next week or so. Before Christmas, I'm going to try. So in the next 4 or 5 days. And yeah, we'll have motion warping. So when we let the player, we'll actually warp to them. We'll have blood effects, camera shake, all that good stuff. That's to come in the next video, so make sure you subscribe. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to be starting off with a fresh third-person template project. The only thing I've done is change the character's mesh and the animations that it uses to run around, but the animation blueprint is still exactly the same as the third-person template. The first thing you're going to want to do is come to edit and editor preferences, and let's type in save. You'll see save on compile. Let's just change that to on success only. Yours will probably be on never. Just change it to on success only. This will just save every time you successfully compile. And then let's type in open and change that from default to main window. And when you've done that, we're good to go. So the first thing we want to do is put a weapon in this guy's hands because he has nothing right now. So if we come down to the content browser, I'm going to right click and go new folder. I'm going to type _game. We're going to double click that, new folder again, blueprint. Double click that one more time, new folder. We're going to call this one struct. Open that up and we're going to right click. We're going to go to blueprint and structure. I'm going to call that S weapon info. Okay. And then when it opens, you'll see you get a Boolean to default with. It's basically just a list of variables that you'll be using and setting inside of a data table. So if we change this first default variable, we're just going to put name. We need the name of which weapon we're using. And let's give that a value of name. Add another variable. We're going to call that description. Description. There we go. And we're going to keep that as name as well. Don't need to change it. Then add variable. What we're going to need is a skeletal mesh. And then for this one, we're going to left click on there and we're going to type in skeletal mesh. And you'll find skeletal mesh here and then just go object reference. Next, we're going to add a variable. We're going to call this light attack montages. We're going to come over. We're going to search for anim montage. Get an object reference. And then we're going to need more than one of these. So for this, I'm going to use an array. So if you see on the right hand side, you'll see this little icon. Just click that and choose array. That means you can store multiple values in this one variable. Let's add another variable. Let's call it heavy attack montages. And we can keep the type as it is. Let's add another variable. Let's put damage amount. And we're going to make that a type float. And then we're going to make sure we change that back to single. Don't need an array for that. Add another variable. We'll call that socket name. And we'll put that as a type name. This will be the socket that it attaches to the character with. And that's about it for now, but we will be adding more on. So next we need to create a data table to store these things in. Store these values in. So what we're going to do is going to come back to our blueprint folder, right click, new folder again, and we're going to call this data tables. Next, double click on this, right click again, go to the search bar at the top and type in data table. Oh, there we go. And it's going to ask you to pick a structure. This is the list of variables we just created. So I'm going to click on the list. I'm going to type in S. Actually, I see it here, S weapon info. I'm going to click that and then click OK. Now it's going to ask for a name. I'm going to put DT weapon. I'm just going to call it DT weapons. Let's double click that. As you see, we now have the list of variables at the top. So if we click add, this will add a new data table row, which will store every value that we set. So the first one, I'm just going to do a katana. Description, a sharp katana. Skeletal mesh, I actually have a katana mesh included in the character, but you're going to need a skeletal mesh for the weapon. So I'm just going to find that and open it up. This is what I have. Now, if you've only got a static mesh, what you can do is right click on the static mesh, go to convert skeletal mesh, and just create a new skeletal mesh. If you click convert, it will make you a new one like it has done here. But I don't need that, so I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to come over to the data table again. I'm going to go skeletal mesh. I'm going to type in katana. I'm going to find the katana that I want and set it there. Light attack montages and heavy attack montages we don't actually have yet, so we're not going to do that. I'm going to put the damage amount to 25. And the socket name, we don't have a socket name yet, so we're not going to do that. But we are going to create a socket on our character right now. So what you want to do is find the skeleton of the character you're using. So if you don't know what the skeleton is of the character you're using, just find whatever character mesh you're using. I'll be using this one. And then click this skeleton at the top, on the top left, or the top left of the right toolbar, and the skeleton will come up. Now we want to put the sword in the right hand, so I'm going to come down to hand R, right click, and I'm going to add a socket. Let's call this katana socket. I'm going to right click on katana socket. I'm going to add a preview asset, and I'm going to type in katana. I'm going to find my katana or whatever weapon you're using, and you'll see that it spawns it next to your hand, but not really in it. So we're just going to use the translation tools now to move this into place. Rotate it until it looks right. You might need to change this a little bit. We don't have its idle. Actually, we can come up here to preview animation, and I'm going to type in idle and use our idle pose to position it. That'll make it a lot easier. And that's looking kind of right already. If you're moving around too fast as well and you don't know, you can come up here, change the camera speed. I'm going to change it down a little bit. But yeah, that looks about right for me. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm only doing the tutorial, but you're going to want to make sure that's exactly right so it looks right in your animations. But anyways, we're going to come back to the socket, double click it, Control C to copy it, come over to our data table, and we're just going to paste that into socket name. And now we're ready to create our weapon item that we will spawn onto our player. Okay, so back in our content browser, we're going to go to game again and then blueprint, and I'm going to right click and make a new folder. I'm going to call this items. So we're going to double click items. We're going to right click, make another folder. I'm going to call this weapons. And then inside weapons, we're going to right click and make a blueprint class. We're going to make it of type actor. Let's call this BP weapon base. And we're going to open this up. And to get the data from the data table, what we need to do is we need to add a new variable. And let's call this weapon to spawn. And this is going to be of type data table row handle. There we go. And actually, have I put... No, so if we go back to DT weapons, we need to change the row name to katana or whatever weapon you're using. And that's important because then we come to our BP weapon base and we head over to the construction script. This is where we will get all the data and update what we need to update on our item to make it show the right stuff, like the skeletal mesh and the name, etc. We're going to get weapon to spawn. We're going to drag it in. Then we're going to right click and we're going to put get data table row and choose get data table row. We're going to connect this up. So the data table we want to select is our DT weapons. And then the row name is going to come from this variable here. So this weapon to spawn. So if we right click and split struct pin, you'll see we've got the data table type and the row name. We can't use this data table to connect to this because then it won't give us the output that we need. So we need to connect the row name to the input a row name. And then after we've done that, oh, I just needed to select DC weapons again. After we've done that, we need to pull out from out row and let's just type in break and break S weapon info. Now you'll see all these variables here. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on name, promote it to a variable called name, and that'll do. Connect those up, then do the same for description. And then for skeletal mesh, we actually need a skeletal mesh. So we're going to come over to our components tab. We're going to click add, and we're going to select skeletal mesh. I'm just going to call this weapon mesh. And then for weapon mesh, we're going to drag this out. We're going to pull off it, and we're going to type in set skeletal mesh asset. And the new mesh will be our skeletal mesh. And then we're going to just click and promote each one to a variable like we were doing before. Do this on every single one of them. And that is our item done. It is ready to attach to our character now. So you're going to want to go back to the content drawer, go into game, blueprint, and then we're going to right click and we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it components. Double click this, and then inside here we're going to right click again and go to blueprint class, and from the list we're going to choose actor component. An actor component is basically just somewhere you can store logic and then add it to another actor such as a player and use the logic from this actor component. So we're going to call this BPC for blueprint component underscore combat system. So we'll cut this open. So we're going to actually use this to equip the weapon. So you'd normally do that in an inventory system, but we don't have an inventory system. So I'm just going to use a combat component to equip the weapon to the player. But first, we need to make a weapon to equip because right now we've only got a base. So if I go to game, blueprint, items, weapons, we've got this weapon base. But if we right click it and create child blueprint class, and I'm going to call this BP weapon katana, and double click that, and then in the variables, if you don't see anything, just go to this gear icon and click show inherited variables, and then we'll get a drop down and we can see our weapon to spawn. So for this, we're going to want to actually set the default. I'm just going to put it as katana, and as you see, our skeletal mesh changes to the katana, so that's pretty cool. And if you ever want to change anything, we can just do it in the data table and this will automatically update. So now we have that. Let's go back to our combat system component. And we're going to need the character class because our player comes from a character class. It's a child of. So if we right click and get owner and put that under begin play, and then drag off of that and go cast to character. Connect that up, and then all we have to do is promote that to a variable. I'm going to call it character reference. I'm going to save it in a category of references. References, there we go. And that is ready to use now. So to actually select which weapon we need, we're going to come back to our content drawer, go to blueprint, and we're going to right click and make a new folder and call this enums. We're going to double click this again, and we're going to right click, go to blueprint, and then enumeration. And I'm going to call this E weapons. And this is just going to basically be a list of all types of weapons we have, but just the names of them. So then we can use that to select a spawn. So if we go to add enumerator, we're going to put none. It's always good to have a default of none. And then we're going to add another one. I'm going to call it katana. And then you can add whatever you want. But I'm only going to do a katana for this tutorial. So now we have that, we can come back over to our BPC combat system. And then we're going to come over to functions and we're going to add a new function. And we're going to call it equip weapon. Now, equip weapon is going to take an input of type weapon, e-weapons. And we're going to call it weapon to spawn. And then from weapon to spawn, we are going to switch. And now you'll see we have a switch, which basically allows us to use the enum to select which execution pin to execute. So from katana, what we're going to do is type in spawn actor from class. And this class is going to be our BP weapon katana or whatever weapon you're using. And then say you had another weapon, it would be spawn actor from class, and then you choose that weapon and you can have basically this logic executing when this enum tells it to. So after that, we're just going to get the spawn transform and we're going to split it, and that'll give it default values. And then spawn actor katana, we go from return value and we go attach actor to component. And the component we need is from our character reference. We drag that in and we go to mesh, get mesh, and then parent. And then also from return value, we're going to drag off and we're going to type in socket, and we're going to get socket name. We're going to plug that in to our socket name on our attached parent. After that, we're going to come over to location rule and put snap to target, rotation rule, snap to target, and scale rule, snap to target. And we're going to compile and save. Then we're going to go into our third person character, and in our components panel, we're going to search for BPC combat system, and it's going to add itself. And then we're going to just drag that in to our begin play. If you don't have a begin play, just right click, type in begin play and get event begin play. And then from BPC combat system, we're going to type in equip weapon. That's going to give us this function, and we can change it to katana. And now when we play, you'll see we are spawning in with our katana. That's pretty cool. And now we've got to make him do some attacks. So let's get started with that. So in our combat system, we're going to want to go to our event graph. I'm going to delete this event tick because I don't need it. I'm going to right click and put custom event. And the custom event we are going to do is, let's call it play light combo attack. And for light combo attack, we are actually going to pull off and just do a play montage. For the skeletal mesh component, we'll get our character reference and we'll get the mesh and plug that in. And now for the montage to play, we're actually going to promote this to a variable and put light attack montage to play. And we'll set that in a second. But for now, we're going to make another custom event. We're going to call it next combo section. And then from that, we are going to need a variable. So let's add a new variable and call it next combat section and make it of type name. And we're going to pull that and we're going to get a setter. And then we're just going to connect that into the custom event and change it into an input. And we're going to need one more variable. We're going to put default combat section. We're going to set that. We're going to come over here and do a custom event, and we're going to put set default combo section. And we are going to, oh no, we're not going to get a default combat section setter. We are going to get a next combat section setter. Sorry if that was confusing. And we're going to put default combat section into that. Now this is a technique that I actually learned from another person on the site. So I'll link that into the description, their channel. Because it took, this is going to add on to it, but it obviously the base starts from what they managed to work out how to do. So, and it's a very good combo system. So after that, we're going to go to default combat section. I'm going to compile it. I'm going to give it a default of 1. And we're actually going to give the next combat section a default of 1 as well, just to make sure. And then we're going to need another custom event. And let's call that choose random light attack montage. And for this, we are going to actually have to get the weapon we're holding right now. So if we go to equip weapon, well, we've got attach actors to component. If we move this across, let's just promote this to a variable, this return value, and call it current weapon held, and plug that in. And then if we come back to our event graph, we'll get current weapon held. We'll get light attack montages. We'll pull off of this and we'll get random array item. And then the light attack montage to play, we'll set that as the random attack montage that we get. And to make sure this works correctly, on begin play, I'm just going to call that function get random, oh, what is it? Random attack, choose random light attack montage. Let's just run that right at the start, and then we've always got a attack montage set up. And then, so now it's time to actually create our montages. So if I come to my content drawer, I'm going to find where I've saved my montages, my animations even. So I've got these combo animations. So what I'm going to do is find the first one I want, right click it, create anim montage. I'm going to call it AM combo 01 and open that up. And as you'll see, it is a attack like this. And it's got root motion. You have to make sure that the animations you're using have root motion, which is where the root of the character's mesh will follow the animation like you see there. But then I'm going to go to asset browser. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so I can see them properly. And I'm just going to drag in the rest of the combo, if it's going to let me. There we go. In order. Oh, I don't know why that's not letting me. There we go. So if I scroll through it now, or just play it, we have an attack montage playing, an attack combo. But we obviously want to change this into certain sections and play it only when the player clicks attack. So if we right click and go new montage section, and I'm going to call this 2. I'm going to go to the default one, click that, and change that to 1. If we come down to the montage sections panel, if you don't see that, you can go to window, montage sections, and just type in clear. Actually, you should probably do that after you've put in all your montage sections. So just put in all your montage sections that you need for every animation from 1 going upwards. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then press clear. So now if you press play, you'll see it only plays the 1 section and doesn't go into the other one. So with that set up, if I come to combat system, I go to, in fact, we need to go to our data table. And if we go to light attack montages and press the plus icon, and then for our montage, we choose AM combo 1 or whatever you've named yours as. Now, to actually play this, we're going to want to do it with a enhanced input action. Go back into our content drawer, and this input folder we have here that we get from the third person character template, we're going to double click that, go to actions, and we're going to go to right click and go to input and input action and just make a new action of type attack, of name attack. And then we go to our default AMC. We press plus on mappings and we open it up and we choose IA attack. And then I'm just going to set that to the left mouse button. You can also set it to gamepad. Let me see. Right trigger. And now if we go into our third person character, I'm going to come down to the bottom of the event graph. I'm going to go IA attack. And off of started, I'm going to get our combat system, drag it in as a reference, and then put play light combo attack. So now if we press play in our level, we should be able to, no, that's not working. So before we do anything, we're just going to come up to the top, and after the character reference, let's just put a slight delay of 0.1 or whatever. And then do the choose random light attack, because what was happening when I was just testing it was if we delete this delay and we play, nothing happens, and then we close and we get this error. And it says access none trying to read property currently held weapon, which basically means that this choose random light attack is being played or being requested before equip weapon is run. So a little delay. Make sure that that's correct, and we can also do another layer of security, another layer of protection from crashes, and we should just get an is valid down in our light attack random montage function. And there we go. So now when we press play, we can attack. We're only doing the one attack, but everything's working and we don't get any errors. So to actually change what attack we're playing, we're going to want to come down into our content drawer again. We're going to come to game, blueprint. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it notifies. And we're going to double click that, go into that, and then we're going to go to blueprint class. And down in all classes, we're actually going to get a notify state. And I'm going to call this anim notify state combo window. And if I double click that, and we see we've got on our functions panel, we've got the override drop down. So if we click that, we can actually override notify begin, which will play when the notify starts. And what we want is to get owner. Oh, no, we don't. We want to drag off mesh comp and get owner. And then we get components. Why can I not spell? Get component by class. And let's put that as the BPC combat system. And then we want to drag off that and get next combo section. So we've basically got the function from the component, and that's getting it from the owner of this, whatever animation is using this receive notify. So after that, what we want to do is drag out a bit and right click next combat section. That's might be next combo section, but oh well, spelled that wrong. And promote that to a variable and just put it as next section. And for that, we're going to want to click on it and we're going to want to go to instance editable so we can change this in every notify state that we put. And then return node, I'm just going to put return value as true. And then we're going to go to override again and receive notify end. And what we're going to do is we're going to go from mesh comp and get owner again. And then we're going to get component by class. We're going to get the combat system component again. And then we're going to drag off that and we're going to set default combo section. There we go. Sounds about right. And then we're going to also pull off and we're going to choose random light attack montage. So this means that every time that the player doesn't go to an attack, doesn't go to the next attack, it will choose a random attack montage to play. But if they do, then we'll never actually reach this. If they click it in the combo window, we won't actually ever reach this. So then it will continue the same combo. It'll make more sense when it's in motion. So let's compile and save that. And let's come back into our AM combo. And we'll go to notify track, add a new notify track. I'm going to call this combo window. You're going to right click, add notify state, and then we're going to add our combo window state. And for this, we can resize it using the little pins on the side. Find the minute that you hit or would hit the enemy. Put that as the start. And then whatever time you see suitable to carry on the combo after, will basically this length will be the window that the player has to do the next attack. And then let's just copy that and then paste it. Find the start of the, so right where it would connected, and then let's put that at the start of the combo window. Same again. Right where it would connect and drag that there. And one more time. And there we have it. But we also need to change that variable that we made. If we go to the details panel, we'll see default next section. So in the first one, we're in the first section already. So we want to go to the section that is number 2. On the second one, we want to go to section number 3. On the third one, we want to go to section number 4. And then on the fourth one, I'm going to just set that to section number 1. And if all is working, we should be able to combo. Oh, apparently not. Why is that? Oh, I know why. Because if we come to our combat system, our starting section is not actually set. So we just need to put next combat section in there. And now we should be, yeah, there we go. We've got our combo combat system. I keep getting those words mixed up. That was pretty cool. But if you notice as well, I can I can spam it, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to come to the content drawer again, go to game, blueprint, enums, and let's right click, blueprint, enumeration, make a new enum, type E, and player state. And let's double click that. We'll add a numerator. I'm going to put none. And then add another one. I'm going to call it attacking. Actually, I'll just call it busy. And for this, we are going to want to go back into our blueprint folder, go to notifies, and we're going to create a new notify state. So right click, blueprint class, and search for notify state, anim notify state. Select it, and we're going to call this anim notify state underscore player state. So now we're going to double click that to open it. Go to functions, override notify begin. We're going to do the same again. So we're going to get owner. And then we're going to get component by class. And we're going to get the BPC combat system, but we actually need to set that player state as a variable on the combat system. So if we come back over to our combat system component, go into variables and make a variable called player state and make it of type E player state. Okay, that's all we need to do for there. So back into the animation notify, if we come off here and just set player state, And for the player state, I'm going to also right click and promote to a variable. I'm going to call it entry state. So this is the state that we're going to enter into. And then what we're going to do is we're going to copy all this code. I'm going to go to override and notify end. Okay, and then we're just going to connect this up again. Like so, but then we're going to delete entry state. We're going to promote this one to variable and call it exit state. And we're going to click the little I button on both of these to make them instance editable. So now, if we come over to our combo, we're going to make a new notify track. We're going to call it player state. And we're going to right click, add notify state, and then notify player state. And we're going to do basically from the start of the animation up until the combo window starts. And for this, actually, I'm going to go back into the anim notify state blueprint. I'm just going to give these default values. So I'm going to put the entry state as busy and the exit state as none, because that's going to be the most likely scenario using these notify states. So now if I come back, you'll see that it enters when this notify starts, it will become busy. And then when it ends around here, it will go back to not busy. So let's copy that, come over, paste. Oh, we go, and just put that at the start and line those up, and just do that for the rest of your animations. Okay, and then we're going to come back into our combat system even, sorry about that. And from play light combo attack, all we're going to do is make some space. We're going to drag in player state. We're going to pull off this, and we're going to get another switch node like we did for the selecting the weapon. And then we're going to pull off from busy and just plug that in to play montage. Oh, no, we're going to actually select none, not busy. Sorry. Because we don't want it to play when we're busy. We want to actually do nothing. So now, if I go in, I'll start spamming, and no, I can't spam. But everything's working nicely. Okay, so next we actually need to do the attack trace. So whenever we swing our sword, the player knows if it's hit something. So to do that, we're going to come back to our combat system component. And we're going to create a new custom event. And we're going to call it start attack trace. And from a start attack trace, we're going to pull off, and we're going to put set timer by event. And the event will be, we'll create an event, and from the create event, we'll click the drop down and we'll create a matching event. And we'll just call this attack trace. And we're going to put the time as 0.01, and we're going to put looping. And then from attack trace, all we're going to do is I'm going to do a capsule trace by channel. Now, this is going to need a few things. So if I go to DT weapons, we didn't put a trace size. So I'm going to go back into structure weapon info. I'm going to add a variable. I'm going to call this trace size, and we're going to put type as float. And then if we go back into our content drawer, go to blueprint, so let's go into items, weapons, and let's go to our weapon base. And then we'll see in our construction script, we've got trace size here, so let's just promote that to a variable as well, and pull that to the end, like that. And then in the blueprint component, go back to our capsule trace by channel. Let's get our current weapon held, and let's pull off and get our trace size and put that into the radius. And before we forget, let's go to the data table, and let's just create a trace size. I'm going to put a trace size of 20 for the katana, and then go back into our component, and you'll see the trace needs a start and an end. We're actually going to put that on the skeletal mesh of the weapon. Let's go to our data table and let's open up our skeletal mesh from there and double click it. And you'll see on the right hand side, we've got the skeleton tree. So let's just get the root, right click, add socket. We'll call this start. And let's position this to be at the start of the blade. And then let's right click and add another socket, and we'll call this one end. And let's put that at the end. There we go, it should be right. Yep. So now what we need to do is go to our component, get the current weapon held again, get socket location of the weapon mesh, and we'll put the socket name as start and put the return value into start, and then let's pull off the weapon mesh again, get another socket location and put it as end, and then put the return value into end. And to test this out, I'm just going to draw debug type for duration, and then I'm going to come into our play light combo, and I'm just going to call play, or is it start trace, start attack trace. So now I should, yeah, look, so we get a trace on that sword, which is nice. But we actually want to do this whenever we swing, and then we want to stop tracing so it's not tracing all the time. So to do that, we're going to delete start attack trace. Oh, and by the way, if you want to put the half height, something like 10, that'll change the shape of the trace. We'll see it in a second when we put it into our animation montage. Let's go back to the content drawer, game, blueprint, notifies, and we need to make another notify. So we'll go to blueprint class, anim notify state, select, and then we're going to type anim notify state, call it melee trace. And at the receive notify begin, we're going to get owner, get component by class, combat component, combat system we need. And then we can actually call start attack trace. And this will start the attack trace. But we need to end it as well. So let's go back into our combat system. I'm going to close some of these down by middle mouse button clicking. I just accidentally closed down the animation, but that's fine. We can open it again. But we need to create a function to stop this. So I'm just going to get custom event, call it stop attack trace. Pull from here, we're going to put clear and invalidate timer by handle. I'm going to drag this under start attack trace, and from the return value of set timer by event, I'm just going to put that into handle. So that will stop the attack trace from running. So back in our melee trace notify, we're going to go to override, notify end, mesh comp, let's get owner again, get component by class, it's a lot of the same thing. Let's find our combat system. There we go, and then let's just type in stop attack trace, like so. Hook everything up, make everything nice and neat. There we go, and return value true. And Now we can go back into our content drawer and find our attack montage. Mine's in this folder here. Open that up. Go to the notifies track and create a new track. Call it melee trace. Zoom in a little bit. Right click, add notify state, melee trace. And we're going to do it from the minute he swings the sword to when the attack is over. There. Right click, copy, and let's do that for the rest of the animations. Yep. Number 3. Yep. And one more, number 4. Like that. And then if we go to our combat system, go to our trace, it's still on for duration. I'm going to put that as 1 frame. Actually, we'll keep it as for duration, just to show. So now when I attack, you see there is a trace, which is going to trace the enemy. I'm just noticing now that that third combo actually has two attacks in one. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to paste. I'm going to copy that again and I'm going to paste it in again. There we go. So there we have it. We have our attack trace, but now we need an enemy to actually hit. So what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to go to edit, project settings, come over to collision. We're going to add a custom trace channel so that we can trace against only our enemies and nothing else. So new trace channel, I'm going to put the default response as ignore, and we're going to call it melee trace, because it might not just be for enemies, but we want to control what actually gets affected. So click accept, and then we're going to come over to BPC combat system. In this trace channel, we compile, we can choose melee trace. And now let's make an enemy to hit. So if I go to content, all I'm going to do for this is I'm going to come over to characters, mannequins. No, that's not what I need. I need to go to third person, blueprints, third person character. I'm just going to duplicate that with Control D, BP enemy. For this, I'm just going to use the Manny skeleton, Manny simple. And I'm going to make sure that I come over to mesh, collision, custom, and put melee trace to block. And now if I drag an enemy into the level and I walk over to it and attack, you'll see we have green hits. Which is exactly what we wanted. So now we need to make our enemy react when it gets hit. So for that, I'm actually going to use another component, and we're going to make a attributes component. So let's go to content, game, blueprints, components, right click, blueprint class, active component. I'm going to do BPC attribute system, like that. So inside of our attribute system component, we're going to go to variables. We're going to add a new variable and call it current health. And we are going to set that as type float. And we're going to press Control D to duplicate that. And we're going to call it max health, which will be of type float as well. And that's the only attributes I'm going to do in this video, since it's a combat system video. But we're going to compile and we're going to give them a default value of 100. Give them both a default value of 100. And then we're going to need to do a take damage function. So what we're going to do is create a function called take damage. And in this take damage function, we're going to check if current health is less than or equal to 0. And if that is not the case, we're going to get current health and we are going to subtract it. And we're going to go from this minus into take damage to change it to an input. And then we're going to call this input damage amount. And then we're going to set current health to this amount. And we're going to put that from the false. After that, what we're going to do is we're going to do a event dispatcher. And we're going to put on hit event. We're going to get this and we're just going to call it. And then we are going to check if current health is less than or equal to less than or equal to 0 again. Put this down here. Branch. And if it is, we are going to create another event dispatcher and put on death. And we're going to call on death. So now, if we get our BP enemy and we go to components and we go to DPC combat system, attribute system even, hit compile, save. Now, if we just go to our tick function, event tick, let's just print string. Let's get our attribute system and let's pull off and get current health. File and save. So now we can see that we are printing 100, which is the current health. But when we attack, didn't hit him. But even if we attack and hit him, apparently I can't hit anyone. There we go. It will, it doesn't go down. So what we need to do is go into the combat system and the capsule chase by channel. We actually, I'm gonna actually change this. I'm going to delete that and we're going to put a sphere trace by channel. We're going to hook the start and end again and the trace size into radius, trace channel to melee trace, and we're going to keep for duration for the draw debug time. So now when we swing, yeah, that's more like what we wanted. I don't know why I did capsule. It's because it actually turns into a capsule, is where I got that from. And I'm actually going to do one more thing, is this time I'm going to put 0.001. And then, so when we play again, just loops a little bit faster. So that'll work a lot better. But let's go down to the sphere trace by channel and let's get return value. Gonna drag off and press B for a branch. And if we hit something, we're going to pull out from out hit and we're going to break hit result. And actually, this hit actor doesn't know that we've got this function. So what we can do is get component by class and get the attribute system. But a better way to actually do that would be to go into our consent drawer, go to game, blueprint, right click, make a new folder called interfaces. Double click that, go to blueprint interface, and we're going to call this BPI attributes, should I call it? Or BPI combat system. No, I don't like that name. I'm going to call it BPI damage. I'm going to open it up, and so you'll see a function here. This is actually just a library of functions that will later on tell the editor what to do. But for now, we just define them. So I'm going to put take damage as a function. And for inputs, I'm going to put damage amount. And I'm going to change that to a float. Now what we're going to want to do is go to our BP enemy, go to class settings at the top, go to implemented interfaces, and let's add our BPI damage. And then if we go to interfaces and we have a take damage, we double click that. This is going to basically allow us to drag off from our BPC attribute system and type in take damage. Make sure to get the function, not the message, and then connect those up. So now we go to our combat system again. From hit actor, we'll delete this, and we'll just type in take damage as a message and connect that to true. And then what we want to do is drag in our current weapon held, and we're just going to get our damage amount. Get damage amount and plug that into damage amount. So now when we go over to the enemy, let's hit it. Okay, so that's doing a bit more damage than we intended it to do. Let's see why that is. Okay, so I figured out why. It's a stupid thing on my fault. It's a stupid thing. It's a stupid mistake on my part. So all we need to do is go down to our sphere trace and right click and promote actors to ignore to a variable. I'm going to put melee trace actors to ignore. And then after we do take damage, no, actually before it, I'm going to type off hit actor. Actually, I'm going to drag in melee trace actors to ignore. We're going to put add unique. I'm going to pull hit actor into there, and I'm just going to hook that up. And then I'm going to come over here to play light combo attack. And just after we do the switch, I'm going to get melee trace actors to ignore, and I'm going to clear. So that's just going to clear that array. So this will mean that I can only hit the actor once per swing. And you'll see it goes down by 25. And actually, for that clear melee traces actors to ignore, I'm going to delete that from there. I'm going to control exit to copy it. And we're going to put it on the start attack trace instead. So that when I come over and do the third attack, which is actually 2 attacks in 1. Oh, hard to actually get it to hit because we don't have motion warping yet. But I can actually hit him twice in that swing. So now we have a health system. But we don't actually have any reaction or anything happening to show us that we've hit him. So to do that, we're actually going to come over to our begin play. We're going to pull from attribute system. We're going to put bind event on a bind event to on hit event. And from this, we're going to go from event and go create event, which will create this node, and we can go select function and create matching event. I'm just going to call this on hit. So now we know that we can do damage. I'm going to delete this print string on event tick. And on here, I'm just going to drag off from this and I'm going to print string. I'm going to type in ouch. So now if we play, you'll see when I hit him, it says ouch, which is good because it's showing that from this, we are calling this event dispatcher and we can actually set up the logic of what to do in on hit. Okay, and that's all we're going to do today. But I am going to try and record the rest of these videos in the next week for Christmas. So hopefully they won't be too long till they're out. But we have the start of a melee system working. We're going to be adding full motion warping, blood effects, camera hit effects, hit directional reactions, death reactions, all that good stuff. But for now, we've got a pretty good base to be working on. So catch you next time. See ya.